Out here in the perimeter, there are no stars. Out here, we is stoned, immaculate.
Hello and welcome. This is the C86 show. I'm David Eastaugh. As you know, we love a special guest. This week it's going to be the turn of the Kitchens of Distinction. I recently spoke to their singer, it was the one and only Patrick Fitzgerald, to find out more about life, love, poetry and all that other groovy stuff. Talk about life in the band during the 80s and 90s and then what came next. A very long and interesting solo career as well as a career change, and has got a new album that's going to be coming out very soon, 2025. Goes by the name of Stephen Hero. I will give you a link in the notes below to find out more, but you'll hear all about it in this amazing interview. So after several minutes of interesting but casual chat, we get down to that exciting subject that was the early formative years, the cultural awakening. Patrick, it's over to you.
Yeah, and it wasn't as cool as that, but it was still great for me. So my first single, I think I was probably about 5 or 6. I made my dad buy Lily the Pink by The Scaffold.
Right.
Which is a bit of a comedy record with McCartney's brother on it. If you don't know it, it's ridiculous song. But my first album that I got was a while later, and it was Elton John, Captain Fantastic.
Right. Nice.
And I loved that record. I still really like it. And that record for me was fairly pivotal. I didn't have an older brother or sister who was interested in music. I had an older sister, and her music interests were the Bay City Rollers and the Osmonds, which I also quite liked as a kid, but then I wanted more, and she wasn't interested. So Elton John, then the Blue album of the Beatles, then the Red album of the Beatles, and finding what I could, Rolled Gold.
Right.
All of this about age 8, 9, something like that.
Fantastic.
And
yes.
The addiction started, but I wasn't living in England. I was living in Canada then. It was a slightly different world. And then I came back to England when I was 13 and discovered, I think within the summer of 76, I'd be 13, so I'm a year older than you, ABBA, Springsteen, and Bowie.
Hero. Nice one.
Low. Yeah, it was Low. So I remember buying all of those. What was the problem with now, of course, is memory. So it was Low, Springsteen's, the one with thingy on it. This is going to be a good podcast.
Yes, this is a quality chat.
With Thingy by so-and-so.
Not Born to Run. No, it wasn't
Born to Run. Yeah.
Right.
Thank you. And Dancing Queen. And I think they were all quite important records for me as a 13-year-old who had an inkling that I was slightly different to other boys. So they were quite key to me. And
yes.
Elton.
But Elton was, because I had an older brother who was 7 years older, and obviously worked out that I'm just a little bit younger than you, I think, by 1 year. But he had Goodbye Yellow Brick Road, and that was one of those albums that I still think is amazing, and especially the fourth side that has a track called Harmony, which is the very last track, which I think
Harmony would be the one I would cover off that album if I was going to do a cover. That was always my favourite on that record. It's just fantastic. What a great song.
It is just the best. Yeah, I know. That was just, by the time you got to the fourth side, you're thinking, and there have been some real duff fourth side vinyl albums, but that one is just, it has Roy Rogers, like Saturday Night's All Right for Fighting, things like that. I mean, it's just, Kentucky loved him, born and raised a proper. I just guess life just. So I don't know. I just remember those lyrics, and obviously and Harmony starts with one of those. Hello, I see.
Hello, baby, hello. Yeah, it's a beautiful start. So I found it later because Captain Fantastic was the first one in 75, I think it was, 74, for me. And then I went back and found stuff, and I did the same with Bowie when I found him.
Yes.
Like, oh, my God. And then I had to quickly educate myself on that. And at the same time, probably Joni Mitchell.
Oh, beautiful. Yes, I know that.
76, 77 was probably the time I started hardcore collecting records and obsessing.
So Bowie's Low. I mean, my brother bizarrely bought a copy of that, on an 8-track recorder, and I mean, so we had to play it because he bought three. He could only buy three, so we had to. In those days, if you bought something, you just played it to death, didn't you? And it was kind of fascinating. But I sort of had got Changes was the first album I bought, which had all
Okay.
those songs like
Yeah.
John, I'm Only Dancing and Suffragette City and things like that, which were just like, God, what is this? This is bizarre. This was like 74, 75 time. So Low came along a little bit later, but again, it had that song Be My Wife, which I just still think is just one of those classic favourites. And if you get a chance, and I should send you a link if you haven't heard it, but there was a brilliant Radio 4 programme, which was Bowie in Berlin, and they unearthed a couple of people, women, who were around Bowie at that time that I've never heard talk before here because I'm obsessed with him, and talking about making those kind of records and his general lifestyle in Berlin. I don't know if you've heard Bowie in Berlin on Radio 4 yet.
On Radio 4, that doesn't ring a bell, but I have seen. There was some film, wasn't there, of him and Iggy around the time in Berlin that I think I remember seeing. Also,
Yes.
I went with my partner to Berlin to dig out all of these haunts, amongst other things. So, yeah, went to find the cafes that he was going to and all those kind of things.
See if you
Because
could
that was his
find a
dry
man to.
period, isn't it?
Pardon?
That was his dry period of giving up drugs and trying to clean himself up a bit.
A little bit, really, but he did
Not very much.
It sounded quite dark in Berlin, really, at the same
Yeah.
time. But he
Beautiful
rode a
record.
bike, and sort of no one knew anything about him, so he was able to live in that lifestyle. But it's an amazing. I will send you that because it was just like you then have to listen to it several times because you can't. Yeah, it's all quite. I've never heard a lot of those interviews before from.
Oh, it'd be really interesting to hear that. That being alive when those records came out, when Low came out, when Heroes came out, when Lodger came out, who knew what a treat that would have been in retrospect?
Yes,
I was playing Black Star this afternoon for some reason or other.
that is his birthday, isn't it?
No, I think
Yesterday.
I've got new speakers and I wanted to listen to something great, and I thought Black Star, that sounds amazing. Let's play that. And yeah, what a fantastic record! Wow.
It is fantastic. It's
I wonder
slightly,
if he'd been sitting on those tunes for a while, but bloody hell, amazing.
but not the lyrics, put it that way. So, yes,
No,
they're quite hard work. They're not hard work, but they're just kind of quite emotional to listen to because you realise where he was when he wrote them. And I went to see the play as well, Lazarus, when it was
oh,
in
did you?
London. Yeah, and that was quite emotional for lots of
No,
reasons.
no.
Just that. I've got scars that can't be seen. Jesus, what a line.
I
You know.
think it's a good line for everyone, isn't it?
It is a good line. So what was your first gig you went to?
Tangerine Dream.
Wow, I did not see that coming, by the way.
Nor did I. 1978 at Manchester Apollo.
Right. So had you started discovering the nightlife of Manchester, Liverpool?
No, I was 14. I didn't have a clue. I lived in countryside and was getting the bus to school in central Manchester, and the people at school who would talk to me were obsessed with music, so they took me to see gigs. So Tangerine Dream, and then the next night I think they went to see Joy Division, and I was like, "Oh, I'm not allowed out again. I can't go out for another month." So I missed that. But yeah, Tangerine Dream was spectacular. That had fairly profound effect on me.
Yes. Well, my brother was into the prog rock world of, yes, Genesis, Wishbone Ash, and he did have Ricochet by Tangerine Dream, and Vangelis and Patrick Moraz and all that kind of gang.
Yeah.
So, if you were sort of, I don't know, going to university at the mid-70s to late 70s, it was all very, you got into the solo work of Rick Wakeman as well,
No, that passed me by, I'm afraid.
So when you got to 16, which was probably 1979, did you stay on for O levels? Did you do your O levels at that point?
I did my levels early. My parents were fairly pushy, so I did them when I was 15. So I did them in 78, 78, and I did my A-levels in 80.
God, were you slightly hot-housed?
No, I just had pushy parents who didn't really know what they were doing. It was hard work, but so they put me a year ahead at school.
Wow, that's
So
amazing.
yeah, but it was bad because my birthday was in April, so I was a year and a bit ahead. So it was really, I was with lads who were older than me, and I was feeling not only much younger than them because 14, 15. The changes that are going on in your life with puberty and stuff, they were far ahead of me. But also they were thuggish in central Manchester, where I was this softy lad from.
So Morrissey obviously does lots of interviews in the early 80s about Manchester schools. Did you resonate with those kind of sentiments and
Yes.
songs?
I went to school in Rusholme.
Oh, right.
Yeah, it was
So
horrible.
it sounded brutal.
It was, yes, it was unpleasant and yeah, horrible, horrible experience. Couldn't wait to leave.
And did you ever meet Stephen?
No. No, he's
God.
older than me, so I wouldn't have come across him.
Yes. What about people like, is it Ludus and all that kind of that arty bunch? Did they come into your?
No. In later years, I knew a woman called Liz Naylor.
Oh yes.
Was manager of Ludus, and Liz and I are still very good friends. But out of the whole Manchester thing, it was not my city. So when I left Manchester when I was 18, I moved to London, and then I thrived.
Right. So yes, those are the. Had you got into, having been in Canada? Had you got into bands like Heart and?
No, no, not at all. I was too young. I mean, that was age 10 to 13. It was just what was ever on the radio.
Yeah, I just remember that album again from Brother. Had Dreamboat Annie that had Crazy on You, and I was like, oh my God, this song's just
Well,
is
I
the
don't remember that.
most amazing song I've ever heard in my life. So did you?
I love those intense feelings you get. It's very hard to replicate them now as you've got older and jaded.
Yes, you could spend all day just going back and playing that one song almost just to hear, the Wilson sisters rock out. I mean, Crazy on You was just like, oh my God, this is
those intense moments when you were 13, 14 of hearing songs that for some reason or other could channel right into your head and leave lasting marks. I love that sensation. And I and it does sort of form a template, doesn't it? I think if I'd been listening to, I don't know, a lot of jazz or a lot of funk, I'd be doing a very different kind of music.
Yes, well, absolutely.
My parents would just listen to classical music, and so of course I hated it. Whereas now I love it, but it was anything was a reaction against that.
Yeah, that's always. So, did you go to London? Did you say university down?
Yeah. So I went and did medicine.
Right, classic. There you go.
Yeah.
And so as the 80s progressed, we had 79, Thatcher gets in, we have the Falkland War, the miners, strike and riots, and then we had Greenham Common. So what was your kind of the early 80s? Had you become quite political and sort of getting into the, Socialist Workers' Party and things like that?
No, not that way. My politics was slightly different. So my experience at university, because I was living in Tooting. I don't know if do you know London at all?
Only Citizen Smith on Tooting, I'm afraid.
Yeah, well, exactly. Southwest London, so quite out. So it wasn't a central university hub. It was just a medical school. So it was a bit dry. But the 4 or 5 friends I had there were great, and they were crazy and lovely. And that was a big awakening for me. So it changed me. So all of a sudden, I was listening to Killing Joke, Joy Division, Echo and the Bunnymen. Everything just went, poof. The Cure, the Banshees, it all just kicked off for me then.
Blimey! And what were you going to see then? Did you start going to like gigs? All of them.
Yeah, Psychedelic Furs, whatever was going, whatever post-punk stuff was happening, go and see it.
Yes, and had any musical instrument had appeared in your life at this stage?
Oh, I played piano as a kid, So
Right.
and then I got a guitar when I was about 14.
Right.
Taught myself that, but I had piano lessons.
And what were you playing at 14?
Oh, whatever I could. Bob Dylan, probably.
Nice. There you go. Blood on
That,
the tracks.
no, early stuff, because it was easier. So I was totally obsessed with Bob Dylan as a lyricist.
What
So
about Court and Spark and Blue?
completely obsessed by the lyrics. Yes. So I was never good enough a musician to be able to play what they were playing, but the lyrics for me were the way into these worlds.
Yes.
Joni, to me, was eventually, I guess, surpassed Dylan for me. So she was probably the person in my teens and 20s who I looked up to the most.
Yeah, I sort of, yes, lyrically, she's those albums like The Hissing of Summer Lawns.
Probably my
Yeah,
favourite. Yeah.
yeah, I know. God, Jesus, such amazing songs. And actually, it's very seasonal with Joni. You know, obviously, that's my. You know, I know autumn's coming when Blue appears, whereas then the Hissing of Summer Lawns, when the clocks change and you suddenly have that feeling of like summer's here, and yes, things change again with Joni. But I do love some of her later stuff, like Taming the Tiger. So I've got great fond memories of that. And yeah, stunning. I remember one of my early bosses had Miles of Isles, and I thought that was a great album as well. So
Yeah. And she was also, I can't remember how, but a gateway into jazz singing. Probably
Charles
Mingus.
Mingus.
So I then found Billie Holiday and Ella Fitzgerald and disappeared down that world for quite a while.
Yes.
So the lyrics, particularly Johnny Mercer and Cole Porter, and just finding all of that was a real thing for me.
Yeah, and the 80s, you mentioned that slightly post-punk world, but then 83, the Smiths appear, and then 5 years we have indie pop ruling the waves. Well, in my
It's
life,
awful. Yes, yeah,
did that
yeah.
happen? Did that happen for you, or did you?
It did with the Smiths, definitely. I loved them, that first record in particular. It felt like a real revelation, not just musically, but also as a gay man, just seeing that first front cover of Hand in Glove with all its innuendo and whatever denials Stephen Patrick has for himself, it just ticked too many boxes for me and triggered too many signals. So it was a real nice, I don't know, moment for me to think, someone else is out there in a way that wasn't, and I don't mean this in a disrespectful way, but that wasn't Culture Club, and it wasn't Frankie Goes to Hollywood. It
What
was,
about Bronski Beat?
well, that was a bit later, and I was a huge fan, but also politically, that was where I was allies.
Right, Tom Robinson.
Less so because I wasn't paying attention. That's all. In later life, I realised that was important. The problem is I didn't have a mentor. I didn't have anyone feeding me stuff, so it was just down to myself finding things until the mid '80s. Really.
Yes.
But I remember going to see the Smiths, on their first tours on the first album, and it was mesmerising.
Yes. Were the red guitars supporting at that stage?
Can't remember. I don't think I paid any attention to support.
The poor support bands. I know it's a rough
So
life, isn't it?
bad.
Really.
Just
So
like,
then, so did you finish your degree in sort of
yeah,
84, 85,
6,
86?
5 years. Yeah, so it was 81 to 86.
Blimey, at that stage.
I had a
We'd,
year off between school and university because I needed a year to catch up really and grow up a bit because I did my A levels when I was 17. Then my parents got divorced and it was just a mess. So I needed a year out. So then when I went to university, I was finally with people my own age.
yes, and that was...
But I'm not doing what I wanted to do. I just wanted to be in a band. I didn't want to do medicine. So the first thing I did when I was 18 was go to university and go, I want to be in a band. Who wants to be in a band? So met my mate Rob and we formed a band. Took about a year, and we became the Surrogate Mothers.
Nice. There you go. And at that stage, it was a lot of alternative cabaret stuff or alternative comedy. Did you pick
No,
up on that scene at all?
no interest. I liked watching, stuff on telly, but I wouldn't go out to see comedy.
Or ranting poets?
No,
Definitely not.
I should have done. I don't know what was wrong with me, but
There were a lot
no,
of ranting poets at that stage. And people going to Stonehenge watching Hawkwind and stuff like that. Was that
no,
just up
no,
off?
no, not for me.
Yeah.
I was Ents officer at university and put bands on, so which I enjoyed. So I put the Nightingales on. I put Amazulu on. I put Howard Jones on.
Oh, fantastic.
All their stuff. It was crazy. Nobody liked what I put on. It's like, when's the disco?
God,
So,
even Howard Jones. My God, that
well,
was.
he was just beginning, with Jed. His chains. But that was important because me and Rob and our surrogate mothers we opened for Howard because I put us on.
Yes.
So he invited us, and my first gig properly was opening for Howard Jones at the Marquee.
Blimey, there you go.
Hilarious. He was expecting me to bring out like 100 people from university, and of course, no one came. So he was
Uh,
grumpy.
he was grumpy. He had hair then, didn't he? And
Oh,
he,
he was very early in his career. He wouldn't remember any of this.
no, no. Had he done, What Is Love?
No, 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 no. It was before he got signed, I think, even.
Crikey, that was a time, wasn't it? So then you finished university, and then when did the band start to sort of take shape at this stage?
So it was whilst I was at university. So I met Julian in 85, 86. And he'd been busking in Europe and came back determined to form a band. And I met him at a party, and we hung out a bit. And it
Yes,
turned out that we had things that we liked in common. I think the thing that we liked most in common was the Banshees and the Bunnymen, really.
right.
That was our common ground. So I was very much a side one of Low person. He was very much a side two of Low person.
Well, that's
I
so
like
so.
I like the little pop songs, and he likes the long ambient stuff, which is why I
Yes.
guess he ended up colouring a lot of our sound in the way that he did, which was great.
Yeah, I know. It's side one's amazing, but side two's just another experience, isn't it, really?
Yeah.
That's good. Did you see Susan Banshees when she had done her leg in? Because I remember going to see her when she had to sit down because she had bust her knee when she did a
No, I don't remember
sort of
that.
a moment, I think, at the beginning of a tour, and obviously had to go with it. And that was, I just was, but I was at the front and I was still mesmerised because her movement and, I don't know
I
if it
think
was
the
right.
last time I saw the Banshees was on the Juju tour, so it was quite early.
Yes.
And then I don't know what happened. I can't remember. I wish it. Do you know? Just can't. This is why I can't write a book. So I can't remember. Oh, the world is saved by my lack of memory.
Well, it's kind of interesting because I'm luckily I've kept a lot of kind of tickets of things. So there's mostly I remember, but occasionally I think I went to see Rick Mail. So I can't remember,
Brilliant.
and it's one of those kind of well, I've got the ticket, and it's here at Lowestoft,
Mm.
and it's like I must have seen him, but and the comic strip, not the comic strip, Bad News. I remember thinking, God, did I really go and see that? Must have been
Did you
desperate.
really? Wow.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, it would have been a thing, wouldn't it?
It was a thing, you went, I'm going to go and see Bad News. It's going to be
Uh,
hilarious.
all those things I burnt
Oh,
intentionally in 2000 2000, I think it was. I took all my lyrics and everything I'd written, burnt everything. It was a cathartic ritual moment, and it was great. It was real release stuff. I left London, moved out. I mean, I'm skipping, but moved out of London to rural Ireland and took all my stuff. I was kind of thinking my music career was over, and it kind of was, and wasn't sure what to do, and just figured a good way to start would be to destroy everything and start again. So I did. I burnt the lot.
was it quite a lot of stuff as well?
Uh, well, you accumulate.
You
Uh,
do.
Yes. Well, I thought I'd burnt it. I found a notebook the other day in the attic here, with lyrics from the second Kitchens album, and I could have sworn that was one of the ones that went, but apparently not. I look forward to burning that next.
God. So when, as the 80s, I mean, there was a kind of that, the C86 came out, indie pop was really happening. Then 87, the Smiths break up, which is, I think, a moment. It's like the party's over and that next wave of 16 to 18-year-olds come around. And there's that kind of ecstasy world and there's dance music that, there's a
Okay, so
guy called...
before that,
Yes.
for me, was the discovery of American underground rock. So, I mean, overground rock would be REM,
Yes.
but Husker Du, Sonic Youth, that stuff is what I started to get into when the Smiths stopped.
Right. Yes. Well, yes,
So
Husker
I
Du.
wanted harder, heavier, I wanted louder and angrier. And I
Was
got
with
it.
and with Husker Du, was it your Candy Apple Grey moment or the Warehouse album?
Yeah, those two, definitely. Big fan of Bob's. And Sonic Youth, Evil, and
Daydream
Sister.
Daydream
Yeah, and
Nation?
then Daydream Nation, but,
Evil
there's
and
that bit
Sister.
before where it was just angrier.
Yes, and they did a great version of, I don't know, Death Valley with Lydia Lunch, didn't they? A single, which was quite nice.
But to me, it was more exciting than what was happening in England. And the stuff in England that I liked around then probably was Loop and Spaceman 3. Yeah, that kind of stuff.
Yes, it does kind of all start to happen, actually.
Then where's the wordsmiths gone? I tell you what I haven't mentioned is Elvis Costello,
Right.
who who throughout his career I loved. And I would say that's so outside of just concentrating on the music, though, an amazing songwriter, his lyrics, just sharp, incisive, brilliant.
Yes, because around that time he'd done King of America, hadn't he?
Yeah,
Which was
yeah.
classic. But then he did another album which was brutal, which was Blood and Chocolate.
So Imperial Bedroom, Blood and Chocolate, yeah, those would be my key moments. And thinking, oh, you can be this mean and horrible, and it's okay.
Yes. So I
And
Want You. So where do you put I Want You as your sort of, top songs of all time?
well, I went to see him about 3 months ago up the road in Buxton
Right.
with Steve Naive, and I'd just forgotten how extraordinary his songs are, and
Yeah.
he did an amazing 2.5 hours of his catalogue, but not in a dreary way, in a really interesting, novel way, and it just reminded me how important his stuff. He didn't do "I Want You," unfortunately, but yeah, he did Shipbuilding. You just,
Oh,
you're floored, really.
absolutely. Incredible songs. Yeah, I sort of, that period. I mean, I must admit, I don't know his later stuff, but that late 70s and 80s material. And I went to see him live a few times, one with the Attractions, and once at Glastonbury he played, and also with Burt Bacharach, because they did an album. And we went down to London to see that performance, and it was just amazing. I
Wow,
don't know.
did you? Okay, I'm jealous of that.
Did you get the album, by
Yeah,
the way?
yeah,
That
yeah. I got that.
I thought that was
"God
just...
Give Me Strength" was a beautiful, beautiful song, amazing song.
Yes.
They used
So,
that in a film where Matt, can't remember the actor's name, but he plays Brian Wilson. Quite,
God,
quite an odd film.
yes. Well, there you go. No, Elvis
Deanna
is...
Douglas mimes "God Give Me Strength" in it, and it's such a great version.
And there was those were indoor fireworks. God,
I
those
tell you what, I didn't do at that time was listen to C86.
No, you'd have hated that, wouldn't you? Bloody jingly jangly.
It wasn't that I
Bloody...
hated it. I just wasn't. I wasn't really. It didn't grab me. Partly unaware. The stuff I would have listened to, McCluskey, the harder, angrier stuff, I would have liked. But also, I was in the band now, so we were
Yes.
busy, and I was still at medical school trying to pass and not fail that. That I wasn't too fussed. And what was Julian listening to? Cocteau Twins, um, much more ambient stuff. Just
Dead Can Dance.
Probably.
We all loved
He
Egg
wa
and Dance.
he was, it wouldn't have been my thing, but yes,
No,
not pop enough for me. Either poppy or angry or something, a bit more edge. Gang of Four.
did Big Black, Kerosene, did those sort of songs, Steve Albini?
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
World Domination Enterprises as well. You might not remember them, but,
Oh yes, absolutely.
so it's just the louder stuff I quite liked.
But there was a lot of bands on Blast's first record, weren't there? Obviously, oh yeah, there was Sonic Youth, but it was all those ones like the Head of David and the Butthole Surface, who I went to see live once, and they were amazing.
Yeah, yeah, that's probably why I've got tinnitus now.
Yes,
And Nick Cave at that point was doing some, you know, noisy stuff. It was great.
I think he'd done The Firstborn Is Dead, hadn't he? Before
I
that was.
saw one of his first Nick Cave and the Bad Seeds shows in Brixton. This tiny venue for whatever the first album was.
Was Blixer in the band at that stage?
No, no, it was Barry Adams and somebody else. It's only about four of them.
Yes.
It was very angry
God,
and
I would imagine.
and riveting. Yeah, always a riveting performer. So
Yes.
I guess I was kind of more interested in words and the way what you can do with them.
So at that stage, had started writing quite a lot.
Yeah, yeah.
And what were your first few songs like?
Awful, of course. Everyone's first few songs are awful. So we put out our first single in '87
Was
on
that
our own.
Prize?
No, it was a song called Last Gasp Death Shuffle. And it was a 7-inch single on our own label. And we got a playoff peel. And that's when I qualified as a doctor. I was working. And that's when I thought, right, I'm going to quit and go for it.
Yes, my
So I
God, there
did.
was
And we
because
could because of the enterprise allowance scheme.
oh yes, that was the classic. I
A
mean,
lifesaver.
that was why there are I think so much creativity in the 80s, because you had social security systems and
London was
yeah,
cheap.
it was, and there was the job seekers allowance and enterprise allowance schemes where you had to have £1,000 in your bank account, and then you could just get the dole for a year, but a little bit
Yeah.
more, and you got
You
your
got left
housing
alone.
benefit. You got
Yeah.
you didn't have to have a restart interview. So all those bands went, oh yeah, we'll do that. We'll just find £1,000, prove that somehow that appeared, and then you got your housing benefit and your council tax paid, and
Yeah.
about 30 or 40 quid, and off
And that
you
made
just
all
got.
the difference. So you could spend time being creative, getting your songs together, getting your or whatever art you were doing, getting it together.
Yes. And, go to happy hour at the pub just to live the life.
So it was a fertile time. So I mean, the band was happening, but also there was friends in our circle who were doing other things like doing clowning, doing stand up, doing mime, doing all sorts. So it was kind of it was an
Yes. Well,
interesting
you had
time.
those people like the Frank Chickens, didn't you? That was a little bit of that world going on. And there was another band called Thatcher on Acid, and I think
Yeah.
they were living in squats, and one of them was also became a GP or doctor of
Wow.
some.
Really? Okay.
Yes, I always wondered what people would be doing as they were trying to have anarchy at the weekend and then studying during the week. But there's squatting. There was a lot of squatting as well in London at that stage, wasn't
Yeah,
there?
it was.
So that also helped. And all those bands from Australia came and New Zealand, like the Chills and also the Triffids and the Go-Betweens squatted in London. So there was quite a scene at that stage.
So that was one of our first tours, was opening for the Triffids. Up and
God,
when
had they
after
done Born Sandy the Devotion on
yeah,
that?
yeah. So it was later. So this was in '89 when we put our first album out, and we did a tour with the Triffids. They put Black Swan, I think it was.
And then there was a Calenture. I can't remember what that was.
Calenture, pardon
Yeah.
me, Calenture. That's the album.
But God, they were good.
They were brilliant and they were lovely as well. So yeah, and their bass player then went on to be in the Bad Seeds, didn't he?
Yes, I seem to
So
remember.
that was our first proper tour, was with the Triffids. Yeah.
Yes. And how did you, can you remember the moment you wrote the third time we opened the capsule. What was the inspiration for that? Can you remember the moment that it was written? Because I can remember the John Peel moment, and that's probably why I came to the Arts Centre to see you.
That's interesting. Did he? He didn't play it, did he?
Oh, I'm sure he did. I don't know how I'd have come. I just assumed he didn't like it.
No, so no, he really didn't like us. So that was a stumbling block. Third time Julian wrote, and he wrote all the music and said, it's called The Third Time We Opened the Capsule. It's like, okay. So I went off and did the lyrics and got the singing for it.
Yes.
I kind of remember it, but it wasn't as collaborative. It was an early tune of ours. Probably wrote that in 86. The songs on the first album were the first really collaborative ones that we started doing, and that's when things started to change.
But you did a John Peel session.
Yeah, but later, much later. That was on the third album.
Right. That was only 92.
That was the third album.
Right. Well, yeah, but yes, but that was late. So yeah, you did one album a year, didn't you?
So we did one in 89, one in 91, one in 92, one in 94.
Crikey, I know, you've got to churn them out. I mean, Bowie did an album a year.
Was seen as slow at those times.
Yeah, this is true, actually, isn't it? I know it's kind of mind-boggling how Bowie managed to record one album a year, produce a couple, relocated, did world tours, and do some acting. I mean, he didn't slack, did he? He was not slacking,
I think, we could have done more. We should have done more.
Yes, and One Little Indian, did they come roaring to your back door?
No. So we had this demo with Third Time on it and a song called Prize and another song. I can't remember which one. 3-track demo. We'd had the play on Peel, not on Peel. On Peel of the Last Gasp Death Shuffle of the first single, which Julian sings. I don't sing it. He wrote the entire thing. And then I took tapes around record companies.
Right.
Because I'd given up medicine and I wanted to get some money and get a deal.
Yes, it does. So John Peel does on 1989 May. He Band of Susans. There's some hip hop and the Kitchens of Distinctions. The third time we opened the capsule.
Wow,
so
there you go. So I'm just prejudiced then.
Along with people like the Wolfhounds and some early acid house, Double Trouble and Kath Coffin and. Yes, Dinosaur Jr. So, yeah, it was all there. It was all going on, wasn't it?
All going on.
So it was the Arts Centre. But when I saw you at the Arts Centre, though,
yeah,
I think you would have been headlining. You wouldn't have been supporting anybody.
It was later then. That would have been 91.
Right. You were in the big league, weren't you?
I wouldn't call it that. I'd call it doing some shows outside of London.
Yes, for 300 indie fans.
There was never big league with our little band, I'm afraid.
No, but it was, so with the first album, Love Is Hell. So where did you record this?
It was recorded in a studio called Berry Street in East London. It was done in 2 weeks.
And your producer?
We did it ourselves with an engineer called Barry Sage, who I think we almost gave a nervous breakdown to.
My God. Had you demoed and got everything rehearsed quite well? Yeah. Were you pleased with the sound at this stage?
Yes, but the recording was a nightmare because One Little Indian guy runs it, came to tell us that we couldn't record live drums, that we'd have to have them all programmed, which baffled us. And
was that to do with the click track?
Yeah, so he wanted click tracks and samples because what they'd done with the sugar cubes.
Oh,
and he just felt that real drums. If you put real drums on a tune, it's not going to get radio play. I can't really remember the arguments for it, but we ended up capitulating, which is I regret because, of course, for the rest of our career, we had real drums on our records.
Yes, God, that click track period was horrendous. I spoke to a lot of drummers who just had. The one from, just had terrible experiences.
Evil time, the 80s for drummers.
Yeah.
So, very sad. Sorry, Dan. I had a really miserable time with bloody programming drums and then us trying to sound like a live band. So the first album was really frustrating and, cheaply done in 2 weeks, which has that sort of sound to it. But I'm not going to dismiss it. I think it's, the songs are good.
And
So
beautiful cover. I do remember that.
cover's interesting. A guy called Paul, who had a company called Me Company, and he did pretty much all the One Little Indian stuff, all the Bjork early records. No, sorry, Sugar Cubes records. Yeah. That was. Sorry, what I'm remembering is an argument about that cover, which I'm not going to go into. But anyway,
Oh no.
it happened. The cover happened. I got my way, which was unusual.
And how was it being the front man at that stage? Obviously Husker Du broke up in 87, which was a devastating experience because they were, a favourite band for 2 years, for that period of the 80s. And then Bob brought out that amazing album, Workbook, didn't he, with the most amazingly depressed lyrics and an amazing acoustic guitar instrumental that started side one.
Yeah.
It was beautiful. Did that have an influence on you, those lyrics?
No.
Fair enough.
I don't think so.
Because he was very miserable and depressed, and I quite liked that in Bob.
Yes, he was. But the thing is that he wasn't out about himself, whereas Ivor most certainly and vocally was at that time, straight away. And though it was probably a career ruiner, it was really important for me to be honest about who I was. And bless Dan and Julian, heterosexual men having to deal with this gay man in their band singing about boys in an indie band, which was about the worst thing you could possibly do career-wise. Put up with it. How on earth do they do that? Bless them. Thank you, lads. I was always going to sing whatever I wanted to sing.
Yes. My God, there you go.
It really mattered to me. And I think partly it's all Joni Mitchell's fault for all of her a supposed honesty. And the other person in there is a singer called Dory Previn, who I was quite obsessed with when I was 14 and 15. Do you know her?
No, Dory Previn.
So she was Andre Previn's ex-wife.
Oh, yeah.
And she famously wrote the theme tune to Valley of the Dolls, which Dionne Warwick had a hit with. But she wrote an album called Mythical Kings and Iguanas and about 3 or 4 other ones, Reflections in a Mud Puddle. Catchy title. You'd like that if you like miserable songs.
Yes. During the 80s, we got quite pretentious with foreign films. Had things like Betty Blue and Diva and that world of, Wings of Desire. Had that started to come into your consciousness as well?
Yeah, completely. Yes. So I would be going down the Everyman, seeing all the Jean Cocteau films and, because it was cheap and it was warm.
A bit like Happy Hour.
And you get these amazing, amazing films that would just blow your mind. So, yeah. But lyrically, I didn't take anything from those American bands because I didn't think they were doing anything that great. Much more interested in what was, I don't know. How do I do this without sounding like really pretentious? But the stuff I was listening to would be more like Lotte Lenya singing Kurt Weill and Bertolt Brecht songs, Cole Porter, Bowie. Bowie's lyrics great.
Yeah, so you were sort of windmills in my mind and Seasons in the Sun.
Well,
Amsterdam.
maybe. Yeah, well, much more that world of a brutal honesty and edgy and trying to keep it real, but also interesting. So,
Yes.
So as soon as people are singing in obscure ways, I just lose interest.
Yeah. What about that world of the Weimar Republic? Did you start getting interested in?
I like the tunes more than and some of the words. So I think one of my favourite records is that Lotte Lenya sings the Kurt Weill songbook. Yeah, and also the American lyricists at that time, in the 30s and 40s, amazing stuff.
Yes, I went to see. Was it Barry Humphries doing this session with someone called Meow Meow, doing the world of the Weimar Republic for an afternoon about 8 or 10 years ago. That was
But that was
stunning.
amazing.
It
Yeah.
was amazing. It was just a fascinating time because obviously anything that Bowie mentions ever, you go, oh Christ, now I've got to go. You have to go and discover that because David likes it, and it's off you go, don't you? So any little references he mentions, like theatre companies from the 60s in America, like the Bread and Puppet Theatre Company or the world of Andy Warhol and Pork, and all that gang.
Sure.
He's your sort of cultural reference, isn't he? He's suddenly off
So
you go again.
absolutely. So in later years, when I met Jane County, that was, it was important. Yeah. And
Jane County.
we opened for Tin Machine, which was, again, a fairly awesome moment. So just watching Bowie walk across the floor at the Town and Country Club and thinking, oh, what do I say? And I froze, couldn't think of anything to say. And he just
Yes.
looked at me and walked past, and all I could think was, I literally cannot speak. Don't know what to say. Too
Did
much of
he?
an icon.
Yeah. Did you? Yeah. At that point, that was obviously. I liked the second Tin Machine album a lot. I thought it was good. I thought I was quite the fan of the band at that point.
Okay.
I'd seen, obviously Never Let Me Down and the Glass Spider tour was quite tricky. I had seen it and it wasn't that great. So anyway, it's David. You have to go with these things, don't you? So, so then, because 89 when I saw you, bizarrely, that would have been the same time I saw Tad and Nirvana at the Norwich Arts Centre. And that was kind of so. Things were really changing musically at this stage, weren't they? Because John Peel had done that compilation Sub Pop 100 and then Sub Pop 200, and there was those kind of grunge bands started to really come out, Mudhoney and people
I
like
remember
that.
that. We did a week at the Fulham. There was a week at Fulham Greyhound where they had all these bands on. Tad and Nirvana played, and we played. Parachute Men. Was 14, 15 bands played that week, and Nirvana were opening for Tad, I think.
Yeah, that
Yeah.
was it.
So aware of a name, but not paying any attention because we were busy. We were just off doing stuff and lost in our own world.
Yes. So when you come to do Love Is Hell, you obviously had the famous. This is one of those producers that everybody loves. Is it Hugh Johns you had at this stage?
Oh, that was for the second album, Strange Free World. So that was
yes.
Hugh Jones. We met before going into the studio and were charmed. What a lovely man. And he'd worked with the Bunnymen. He'd worked with Adam and the Ants. Oh, my God. Have to work with Hugh Jones.
Yes. And everyone absolutely loved everyone who worked with him. He just smoked and just got the job done.
He was so good. So good. I wish I could do every record with Hugh. Yes, he was a master.
And was this done was it Chipping Norton in Oxfordshire?
Yeah.
Was the sort of creative process at this stage, was it quite fluid? Was it quite good with the band? The second album can be quite a nice experience.
Second album was straightforward. It was easy to write, and Julian had come up with a song called Drive That Fast. So I think we felt quite confident that this was going to be a good thing. We also had Hugh seemingly on our side, and we could use real drums. And the other thing that had happened was that we got sold to A&M in America. So One Little Indian licensed us to A&M, and suddenly there was money, not for us, but for One Little Indian. So, listeners, how this works, or worked in 1990, was that you signed to an indie label, and the indie label, regardless of who they were, would then sign you to an American major, and they would keep the advance for themselves and not give you a penny of it. But it meant that they could spend money on you if they wanted to, but you'd still have to recoup that. So they sold us to A&M for a large amount of money, of which they used, I'd say, a third on the recording of this record. But then, of course, that had to come out of our recoupment. And this was the beginning of an enormous debt accrued that you could never crawl your way out of.
I know, it's amazing, isn't it?
And you feel the bitterness in there.
I know. Well, I did an interview with was it Jim Bob from Carter? And it's like, and I just said that in innocent question, do you own your music? It's like, no, you know, we own millions, but we can never own the music that we had, because you lose, you get given a million, but suddenly you're millions in debt. It's like
It's a
within,
crazy situation. I remember meeting him in Los Angeles. We were around at the same time. We were in this ridiculous hotel in Los Angeles, and there was Jim Bob, and there was our band. You know, there was Carter and us. And I think at that moment it clicked for me that this is absurd, and someone's paying for this, and we're never going to get a bean. Enjoy the ride. So we did.
yeah,
It's Kipping Norton was fun. It was our first residential studio. It was ridiculously expensive. It was every 14-year-old fantasy of being in a studio. You know, big fancy machines, big fancy microphones, playing, drinking, smoking, having a blast. Loved it.
yes.
So that was twice as long, 4 weeks to record, and then a couple of weeks mixing in London.
So your first single from the album was "Quick as Rainbows."
It wasn't. It was
Oh, good.
Drive That Fast. What happened was we'd done Quick as Rainbows as a single with Martin Hannett.
Oh, yes. Was he sober at that stage?
No, it was no. He was not sober. So we had this very tricky encounter with Martin Hannett, I think in the last year of his life. And it was it was really sad. You know, you meet someone who's made all these incredible records, all those magazine records, you know,
Yes.
great soap he made, unbelievable record. And you turn up and he's just this very angry, sad man. And we did one song with him and it went badly. And we took the recordings, went to London, remixed it and put it out as a single because we had to, because it'd been forked out. So that was our first experience with the producer. So it didn't all go well. So we redid it with Hugh and it became a single in America, but not in the UK.
Right.
So in England, the Hannett version came out as a single and it was about 6 months before. And then with Hugh, we put Drive That Fast out, which I think was the only single off that record in the UK.
Yes, it was.
But then in America, different story.
Was it?
They'd spent lots of money, so they wanted money back. So we went to America, we toured, and Drive That Fast did well on radio, did very well.
Did you do East, West and Central or just?
All of it.
Blimey, you must have been shattered.
It was great, loved it.
Brilliant, yes.
So they released Drive That Fast and Quick as Rainbows, the Hugh Jones version, and both records did very well. And the video for the Quick as Rainbows is an American video by a guy called Kevin Kerslake, who then went on to do Nirvana.
My God, you were there, weren't you? You were on the zeitgeist at this stage.
But sadly not. Which is fine.
Had you got management at this stage?
Had we got management?
Yeah.
I think I could write a really bitter book about the terrible, terrible mistakes you make in music. And one of them was our choices of managers.
Oh, right. You had several at this. Had several.
No, we had none. And then we got one. And really nice guy, lovely guy. It just didn't work for us. But it was partly our fault because I think already at the second album there were tensions
between the three of you.
Yeah. So things started to get edgy because I was really enjoying myself. This was fun. Touring America, great. But I wasn't, that was my voice and it wasn't everybody else's. Right. I loved touring. I loved playing live. It was when we were at our best, by far. Our records were never quite as good as what we were live, I didn't feel. And Julian quite liked it, but he got very anxious, and Dan hated touring.
Right.
He sort of liked it for a bit, and then he went off it big time. He got homesick, wanted to be home with his girlfriend.
God, that's
which is fine, but not. Whereas I was all up for, well, why don't we move to LA? Because they're asking us to, and they're going to put us up, and we could tour America for a year. England's not happening. Why don't we try America? Which
Yes.
we
What
were
about Europe? Had you done much in Europe?
done a bit, but hadn't gone that well. But okay in Germany. But again, the same issues about not one. Yeah, we weren't really on the same wavelength.
Right.
I,
So
I
that,
wanted. I got accused of wanting to be a pop star, and what I wanted to do was just play. And that was the difference. I loved it. It wasn't work to me. It was fun.
right.
And there was nothing I liked more than just playing music live. I thought it was fantastic. And
Yes.
that wasn't really shared.
God, that's tricky, isn't it? That is so tricky.
It's a shame because, it was we were very good at playing live. The other two really good musicians, much better than me. But I just got the kick in a way that I
Yeah.
didn't.
That's, that's such a shame because most bands, do have that 5-year narrative from this period of that 12-month, practice and rehearse and John Peel play a bit of a John Peel session. The first album, the Transit Van, ran the indie circuit of all the
Yeah.
art centres. Then the second album, a bit bigger, possibly the university circuit, and then potentially a third album, and then unfortunately.
And then off you go.
And mostly people go, and when he did America and came back and broke up, because that's often the one that, most people find America breaks them. That was quite the one thing I've noticed with all this is that,
It was really hard work. We did, I think, 4 big tours, and the last tour, second last tour, we were open for Suzanne Vega, and that was really hard for both her and us because it was a mismatch.
yes. Which
Uh,
album was she doing? Was it
she was
Solitudes?
doing 99.9 Fahrenheit,
Oh, right.
that one, and she was on A&M, and they wanted her to do better, and they wanted us to do better. So put them together, guys. And no. So we were playing supper clubs. So people were eating while we played. Ah,
What a nightmare. That is like one of those package
it was
tours.
really unfortunate, and I really felt for her because it it was not helpful for her, and I think we were a pain in the ass turning up playing loud, and then her audience not really wanting to hear that, and then our audience not wanting to see her. So and we were stubborn in a way that we shouldn't have been. I think we could have been a bit more forgiving. 7 weeks that tour was. That was awful. But we went back, and after we got dropped by A&M and did a tour of our own, off our own back, drove ourselves in a transit van with a sound guy, Andy, and did it all again.
Blimey, was
And
that
that broke us.
had you done the Death of Cool at this stage? Your
Yeah.
third,
So
right?
the Death of Cool was the Suzanne Vega tour.
Right, and again with Hugh Jones as well.
Yes, yeah. That was done at Sawmills in Cornwall.
And was that a residential?
Yeah, yeah. It was beautiful, beautiful place. So it's quite remote down near Foy in Cornwall. You had to get a boat to get there.
My God, it didn't turn out to be like The Shining or
It almost did because we were unprepared and the songs weren't finished. It was my fault. I hadn't written the words. I got a bit stuck. I was in a relationship that I was ending. It was quite painful and I didn't know what to write. And there was stuff going on in the band that wasn't very happy. I think you can tell there's an issue with that record because there's songs that want to be pop and there's songs that want to be very long and ambient. and there's, yeah, I'm not sure I haven't listened to it for years, but it might not hold as well together as the previous one.
Yes, God. I mean, amazed you then got to your fourth album.
Well, that was hellish, yeah.
But you had Pascal
No,
Gabriel.
we didn't.
You
What
did?
happened? No, that was later. So the fourth album was we produced ourselves with our sound guy Pete Bartlett, and we went to his house in Scotland, bought all the gear, and recorded an album. And we made the terrible mistake of not having written it we had some ideas. We'll do the ideas. It'll be great. And of course, it wasn't. So we turned up with these half-formed ideas and spent 4 months making a record. And it was like pulling teeth. It was really, really hard work, and not getting on with each other, people disappearing, going back to London, Pete being annoyed. Of course he would be, he's expecting a month of us there, and he ends up with us there for 4, dithering.
God.
So the album then gets rejected by One Little Indian, and they want another tune, and so we end up meeting Pascal, which is a stroke of fortune. He's turned out to be a really good friend all these years. He's a lovely, lovely man. And we did a new song. I wrote a new song about failure with him, and he remixed two of the other tracks.
Blimey, that was a stroke of luck, wasn't it? Really?
Yeah. So yeah. We had a couple of other guys remix tracks, and they were awful. So
Blimey, and songs like "Now It's Time to Say Goodbye."
Yeah, Pascal fixed that. He had all these fantastic ideas as to how to make it right. Me and Julian had tried to write what we thought was a Phil Spector song, and it has moments, but it didn't really hold together. And we needed someone with a better ear to figure out how to do it, and he did.
Right. And Cowboys and Aliens?
That didn't get touched. That's from the original recordings. Yeah.
Did it feel like when you were in that space that was going to be the end? Did you feel like this is the end of the...
Oh, yeah. Yes.
What's that like? Because normally you don't do a project thing and I don't want to be here.
Horrible. It was horrible because I'd invested everything, and I really, really wanted the band to work.
Because actually, your timing, it was the beginning of Britpop, wasn't it? I mean, you were there.
We were there, and we were completely wrong for it. So along comes Suede, and I think, God, they're great. I wish I was in Suede. And then Blur and Oasis, and I have no interest in either of those bands. They don't do anything for me.
No.
But Suede and Pulp, great. Loved them.
But just guitar bands, all these people who'd been watching those indie bands from the 80s were there, suddenly not in the indie charts, in the
They're very
enemy.
much not Julian music, not ambient, not far out, nothing, not what he wants to do.
Right. They just...
He really, really was struggling at this point. I think he just wanted to make records without singing on. He wanted to make Eno records, and then we're in a band and I'm singing. So not only has he got the difficulty of my special voice, he's also got me singing about what I sing about, and well, you can see where it goes, can't you?
Yes. So did you then have it gets released? Did you do any tour?
Yeah. No, we carried on for another 2 years. We toured, and what happened was we toured venues that we'd toured on our first album. So
Brilliant.
Things got worse. So we were gone back down the ladder, and I was realising that how do we reinvent ourselves? How do we do this? So not only does Britpop arrive, but Nevermind has kicked off big time.
Yes.
So you're caught between A&M wanting, Nevermind, and everyone else wanting Blur Oasis. And we don't fit any of that. So goodbye. So we get dropped. And that's that. But we put a single out on Fierce Panda Records in '96, do a few more shows, and it's very clear to me that this is not going anywhere. I've written and recorded a solo album already by this point. So I quit.
Right. My God. Can you remember the moment?
Yeah.
What happened? When was it? Where was it?
I can remember the last gig. It was in New Cross, a place called The Venue.
Right.
And I just thought, oh, it's our last show. Okay. And it just felt awful. Really, really
Christ.
sad.
Had you felt, did you go into a depression after that?
Yeah. Yeah. Hated it.
God.
Yeah, it was a very difficult time. Because I think when you're in a band like that and you have this momentum and you have this people wishing you well, and then all of a sudden you're no longer of interest to the people who were interested, and you recognize this yourself and that you're out of fashion, it's you then question your own judgment,
Mm.
your own talent, or whatever you want to call it, um, craft. It takes a while to figure out, so am I going to go and get a job, or am I going to go and do something else?
Blimey. Yes,
Yeah.
I know. Quite a lot of musicians just spend a year wandering around and often having to sell all their musical instruments because someone had forgot to pay the tax bill and they went, oh, shit, I can't
And
believe
we got
that.
ripped off by our accountant.
Yeah, classic.
So we had the same accountant as Suede, and so he ended up in prison, and we ended up owing thousands and thousands that he'd embezzled. So that was a neat ending.
Christ.
Yeah. So I had a stroke of fortune though. So
Mm.
I did a solo record and got a publishing deal off 4AD Music guy called Momentum, part of 4AD, and they just paid me a wage for a year. So it kept me out of trouble. So I did my own stuff, but I also helped doing other people's music for a year.
Yes. God, that got you into the new Labour years, didn't it?
I'm not sure I paid any attention.
Well, we'd gone from Thatcher to Major to Blair, so your career must just been creeping. Yes, that must have been that late 90s, not yeah, mid to
Yeah,
late 90s.
96, 97 basically was a year of trying to work out what the hell to do next.
Yes.
Um, yeah, so I did the solo album and One Little Indian said, "Well, we'll put it out only if you tour 40 dates." So I toured
And
40 dates.
did you go out as your own name?
No, I went out as Fruit, and because the album was called Fruit, and um, the album was called Hark at Her, and it was a fun little pop record. It was quite different to Kitchens, and there was another One Little Indian band, and basically we did 40 shows opening for each other because no one came, because no one knew about it. So it was really, really challenging experience.
Crikey.
But it was a shame because it was actually quite a good record. Uh, um, I had all sorts of people on it. I had David McCalmont on it. I had Isabel, who was the singer from Drugstore, singing a duet with me. Mickey from Lush chatting with me on one of the tunes. Um, yeah, it's a fun record,
Yes.
but a disaster. So I
Did you
quit.
do 40 dates? Were they quite small, kind of?
No, not necessarily. It was. Can't remember who organised it, but it was a catastrophe. So that was the end of touring.
Had you formed a band to
Yeah, I had
tour?
to get a band together, yeah, of unknown people, lovely, lovely people, um, and yeah, it was total disaster. It's fine in looking back at it and laughing, but no, awful.
Oh my God. That's so then sort of 98 to 2000 was we worried about the millennium bug. What did you do for those 2 years?
So I formed a band with Heidi Berry
Oh, yes.
called Lost Girls. Um, Again, because she was part of the same publisher, 4AD publishing world. And we did a few shows together and we started doing some recordings and we formed a band. And it was all going okay, actually. And I was thinking, there's something here. This is interesting. Um, and then I got sick for the first time. I knew because I have an inherited disease of my mum. I knew sickness was coming, but I didn't realize it would be that early, and freaked me out, and I just quit. So I said, "Sorry, Heidi. Sorry, band. I'm going," and moved to rural Ireland. As you do when you're faced with a crisis, run away.
Yes. Crikey.
I got really sick and realized when I got better that stuff was coming, and I wasn't sure how I was going to deal with it.
So with most sicknesses, it's not like getting better. It's just like, okay, this is the beginning of the journey.
So it was an inherited kidney disease, so I knew I was going to get lots of infections, and then eventually the kidneys would pack in. And that's what happened, but I didn't realize it was going to happen that young.
Yes.
So I needed time to think. So I moved with my then partner to rural Ireland and had a think.
Yes. And did the kidneys get better?
No. They got worse and worse. Do you want to hear all this stuff?
Well, yeah. Well, the reason I'm slightly, because I got diagnosed with kidney cancer in 2016, roughly around the same time that David Bowie goes. I'm sort of going through the MRI scans and suddenly being in hospitals, having major operations. So, yes, my ear slightly pricked up when you mentioned that. So,
okay. Are you all right?
Yes. Well, I get my yearly scans and get a little freaked out when they phone and say, "Oh, can we just get you back because we've seen something?" Then it's fine.
Right.
But you have that whole process
Nagging
of just thinking,
in your head all the time.
yeah, you think, "Oh no, don't tell me it's jumped to another organ. Please don't let it go to a." It's always that thing, isn't it? You always wonder. But it was all around that 15, 16 with Mr. Bowie. So that black, that album is a bit hard to listen to.
Fair enough.
But I was just curious when you went, "Oh, okay, that was yeah," and that just it's life, isn't it? I mean,
It is. Yeah.
yeah,
And it shapes you, and these are the things that make you how you are.
yes,
And I think part knowing all of this when I was 20 was one of the reasons that I quit medicine and joined a band, because I thought I better have fun now. So I sure as shit did. I had a very, very wild, crazy time in the band. I don't think I've stated that. So drug-fueled, sex-fueled, ridiculous lifestyle for 8 years, for which I thank God I had a great time. It was amazing. If you ever get the chance, kids, do it. It's great. Anyway, I knew that this was coming. So come 2004, I moved back to the UK, knowing that my kidneys were beginning to pack in and that bad things were happening, and went back to medicine. So went back to being a doctor and carried on making little records because I couldn't let go of music, but also couldn't really commit in the way that I had done with the band, because health arrived, or ill health arrived. And so by 2006, I was on dialysis, and 2008 had a transplant. There you go.
And it's all successful.
In Rocky.
Jesus, well,
I had
yes.
a out in 2013. Had my left one taken out, so I've got a sense of that. And last year, the transplant decided to go wobbly, but it's not wobbly anymore. But this is what you live with, isn't it? These
absolutely.
And they kind of inform you and help you make decisions in life as to what you're going to do. So seizing the moment has always been quite important to me.
Well, I was,
and doing what you want to do, and not being. I guess that's part of the reason that I was a bit daft about coming out and being forward about my gayness and being all. It's just like, well, we've got nothing to lose. Just do it. Be
Nothing to
yourself. Don't give a shit.
do. Yeah, and
Mm.
just and have that moment. Yes, it's. I mean, as one realizes now, I'm glad I've done a lot of things in that past, because you just don't have the interest, and B, possibly physically not have that ability. So
Which is
between the two
where we're
things, like,
at.
do you want to have an early night and a hot water bottle, or go out and you think, I think I have the hot water bottle and an early night. Let's face it,
Well, now I don't. There's little choice in that. Yeah, yeah.
Yes. So then the Stephen Hero. That's
Yeah, I couldn't stop doing music, and it sort of had this two careers. Had to go back to medicine from the beginning. So at age of 40, I was doing what everyone who was 24, 25 was doing, which was hard. So, and I was on dialysis. So it was really hard work. So music kind of, I couldn't let go of it, needed to do it for my own therapy, partly. And also there's just the joy of it. I just love writing music. Why I put
yes.
it out there could be questioned, but I still quite like doing that.
But you've done a lot of albums. I mean, a lot
Yes.
of work, and sort of, and it all slightly now makes sense.
Does it make more sense? I
It
hope.
does. Imagine Me Gone.
Yeah. Well, I think that's come from COVID, really, because I was a transplant patient. So I was getting these letters from the government saying, you will die if you go outside.
Yeah.
And I had a really high powered medicine job at that point, running a service, and couldn't go to work. So I was running it remotely because I would die if I caught COVID.
Yeah.
And having been through the whole HIV/AIDS thing, and you will die if you have sex, and you will die if you get this disease. Because I remember in '83, when the first cases of HTLV3, as it was called then.
Mm.
So this, second pandemic, chronic ill health, I'm just thinking, oh, well, there you go. And then I read a book called Imagine Me Gone, which is on the shelf over there.
Right.
And it's about a family having therapy about their dead dad. It's a lovely book. But I love the title. So I nicked it. And just the idea of us being ghosts, did we all die in COVID? Because at times it feels like we might have. Life has become so odd and surreal. I do feel sometimes quite ghostly. You're just walking through this ghostly world. It's fairly unrecognizable now to what it was before the pandemic. I don't know. So part of me just feels like I need to lie down.
Yes, well, absolutely. We're all exhausted. We all have to have breaks from the news, because every day is more bizarre. So yes, because the production and the video is all incredible. Who, where do you record your material now?
Uh, in my shed.
In your shed. But yes, and video.
Oh, so that was my goddaughter, Alexandra. She went to film director university. She did a degree in film direction at university, and I asked her if she'd do me a video.
Right,
Yeah,
blimey,
keep
that
it in
is
the family. Keep it cheap.
keep it cheap. But again, incredible. And that the previous album that you did in 19 is a song which is Patient Hear Myself. That's quite
You
horrendous
might have
to
picked up on that yourself.
this again, incredible 10-track album, which is kind of quite heavy stuff, isn't it? It's become
It
quite.
is. It is. It's a very bleak record. I'm very fond of it, but I can see why people would struggle with it. Um, but I did want to make a Baroque record. I wanted to make it particularly drum-free and piano, cello, and sounds. That was my. I That's what I wanted, and I think one of the inspirations for that was Colin Blunstone's solo record, which had Caroline No on it. Do you know?
Right.
Not Caroline.
Yes.
No, that's the Beach Boys. Colin Blunstone. What's that first?
I just know the Oracle and something.
I'm going to have to look it up now.
Blunstone. It's quite sweet, Colin. I've done several interviews with him quite recently because he's always touring. He seems to be constantly out there doing it.
What a talent! What a voice! God.
Yes, Oracle and God, I can't remember it. The Zombies.
Say You Don't Mind. That's the song. And Caroline Goodbye from the album 1 Year. Do you know those? So they're very baroque. They're just string quartet with him singing. And
right.
Really lovely.
This is where your love of classical music started to appear.
No, that was I had a moment when I was 37 and we were in Prague for my birthday, and we went to see Shostakovich's Fifth Symphony being played by the Prague Symphony Orchestra, conducted by Thingy Makaris. And you see, I can't remember names anymore. And it absolutely blew my mind. I just didn't know that music could sound like this. It wasn't Bruch's Violin Concerto. As lovely as that is, this was something else. And it was a gateway into a whole new language for me.
Amazing.
But that took me then to a world which, I mean, I daren't step into, but I nick bits. So on that record, there's some screechy cello, which would be from Shostakovich's cello concertos, which are wild, totally wild and beautifully incredible piece of music. And from the most broken soul you can imagine, I just think, how do I write music like this? Well, I can't, but this approximates in my world.
Yes.
So I have this amazing cellist, Si Mei Wu, who does experimental cello work, and she's unafraid. So when I say to her, "Can you make it sound like it's broken?" No problem. Here we go. It's a broken cello for you. And she scrapes and scratches.
Yes. And just going slightly back before that, you did this album Folly, didn't you, as well?
Oh, that was with Kitchen's vague reunion, where the three of us were never in the same room. Yeah.
And what was the purpose of that project?
It felt like there was unfinished business. Still feels like there's unfinished business to me.
Yes.
Because I miss them. I miss the way we work together. I miss the chemistry of that. It was really lovely. And so I had some tunes, and I said to Julian, will you come and work on these tunes with me? Because I don't want them to sound like me.
Yes.
And so he took them and did what he wanted to do with them. So he didn't originate any tunes, which would be unusual, because in most of the Kitchen stuff, he wrote the music. He wrote, 80% of it. So him coming in and then taking my tunes and doing stuff with them felt really good.
Yes.
It was a long process, but it was really excellent. And then Dan came down here just to add some drums when Julian wasn't around.
And did you ever have a sort of a bit of a chat all together about life?
No. The three of us can never be in the room together, apparently.
Even now, at the age of 60-something.
It's pretty sad, isn't it?
I can understand it when you're younger, but when you're 60-something, everyone's had those experiences. You just think, you just let go like that. You just think, come on, who cares? It really...
Well, I have the luck of having a very poor memory as well, so I've forgotten all the bad bits.
Yes.
Whereas maybe they dwell on them.
It is a shame, because it's just like, well, we were different people back then. We did our best and we weren't that great. And at times we all acted badly.
Well, if you want to run that therapy session, you're very welcome.
Yeah, I'll get a talking stick. It'll just go so well. No.
I don't know. I don't. It feels like it's just not to be done. I have asked, and the answer is no. So there it is.
There it is,
But the
straight.
nearest we could get was doing that record Folly, which hence the title, because I knew it was a stupid idea and I knew it was madness, but I still wanted to do it. Um, and some of it turned out all right. I quite like some of it. I think Julian said to me not that long ago he actually quite liked one of the songs. So that felt like a victory.
Yes. Well, I used to love the Fleetwood Mac story and this kind of tension between the 70s. I mean, the 60s Fleetwood Mac is extraordinary as well, but that kind of whole tension of them in the 70s and that uh, just being in the same room occasionally, all go
Yeah.
terribly wrong and then chasing each other around the studio or down the car park and trying to kill each other. It's kind of great rock and roll stuff, isn't it? But
Yeah.
they still got together and did the albums. And yes, occasionally created magic. So you've got an incredible body of work, actually, haven't you? This is your solo work has just been phenomenal. You've got like a cathedral of hands, anyone but yourself. Golden EP. It's been you've been very prolific. Have you always got projects working? In sort of in the studio.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. I'll go and play you my new tunes if you like. I've
Yeah,
piano
well,
behind me
so the new album is going to be coming out
next
next
month.
month,
Yeah.
right? It's all finished. And with that world, you never play live, I guess. You'll never sort of.
Well, I might. I'm working up how to do it live at the moment on my own, which is going to be interesting to me, to try and emulate a bit of the old kitchen sound. So what I plan to do, if it works, and that's an if it works, I want to do a set of everything from 1989 to now. So
Fantastic.
representation of all of that body of work, because there's a lot of tunes.
Do you feel like it'll be emotionally good for yourself?
Yeah, it'd be great for me. Whether anyone else would enjoy it, I don't know. But what I've managed to rig up in as a live setup because of modern technology is I can trigger all this stuff from my keyboard, and it's kind of this magical world of sound that you can make through your iPad. Bewildering. So you can trigger MIDI loops and granular synthesis going through delays and reverb, and it sounds like you've got 50 people playing, even though it's just you pressing one note. So that's quite exciting to me as an innovation. So I
Mm,
might just do it anyway and record it. If I can actually get myself physically out of the house to a place to play, that'd be nice. It's just
God.
health now is the fact, energy fatigue.
Yes, stamina.
Yeah, bloody hell. I see those bands who've reformed, and I just think, how'd you do it? You barely climb the stairs.
Yes, I know I know it's quite incredible, really. Especially when I see a band that you think, God, they're quite old, and they've got this tour lined up for next winter, and you don't want to be too blimey. Well, fingers crossed.
The thing is, if you're well and you've not had ill health, you'll be fine until you're in your 80s. And
Yeah,
probably don't even notice. And I think we forget that. If you've had illness is such a drag. It's so boring because it makes your life contract. And what would be so nice is not to have that. But there it is. This is how things are.
yes,
So if you're well and you're able to tour, go off and have fun. Brilliant. Seize it.
just do it. But otherwise, so yeah, so with your music, it's all on Bandcamp now, is it? Or will you be releasing this as a
No, this new one's on Last Night from Glasgow Records.
Oh, right. So I have come across this label, haven't I? Because there's been all these bands. Because there's a guy called Nick who does this thing called Precious Recordings of London. He's been doing John Peel sessions, and I
All right.
think, and there's all these bands like the Soup Dragons suddenly have appeared, and people are reforming left, right, and centre. The man from Del Monte suddenly appears, and
Really?
all these bands that you went, really? Yes, like you said, it's like yes, well we're going to give our teaching job a quick break and we're going to go and do some dates and people are apparently going to come and watch us and you're thinking go for it, mate.
Yeah, absolutely. Go for it.
You haven't seen each other since 1989, but You've got on with your life, and you've had that weird random phone call that your partner's probably, who was that? It's like, well, you wouldn't believe it, but someone's wondered if we want to tour again.
The Loft have reformed.
The Loft, Pete Astor,
I
and the
know
new
Pete.
single.
I know Pete quite well. Well, I did know him, and it's just so nice to see him doing stuff. He's always been prolific, but he just seems to be having fun and he does that all the time, doesn't he?
Yes, he's just doing it, and he's made up with his Loft mates, and he's out there doing it, and they've let go. They've just let
So
it go.
Dave Morgan, who played in the Loft, played on with the Lost Girls.
Right.
So when I did that album with Heidi Berry, he played drums on it, and which is how I know Pete. Yeah, and Dave played on a Stephen Hero record, couple of Stephen Hero records. Yeah.
Yeah. They're all nice guys, and I'm just really, I'm just pleased that people have thought, no, we'll just do it, because frankly, we can't put it off too much longer, can we? We're going to have to just get it out there, and and I think most people get that curiosity, obviously, of like, well, actually, I know it's great playing something that we wrote 40 years ago or 30, but we get to write a new material song. We've got the equipment now, and get out there.
They've made an extraordinary record, haven't they?
Oh my God, that is just that last song on side 2. It is absolutely transcendental, isn't it? Have you?
Yeah. So maybe, that's a good sign for old people. Look, amazing record by old people.
Old people.
I'm sure he doesn't think of himself as old. Why should he?
But he's. I think. See, this is what I find with the creative singer, when they've connected to their higher consciousness. I think they write something brilliant. And like Robert Smith, I think it's just like, wow, that is some really amazing emotion. Whereas when I hear kind of Morrissey's new-ish material, I just think it's clunky. It just doesn't have that beauty about it. It's kind of, it's lacking somehow. And I think there's a sort of something about the spirit in creativity that needs to be it needs to be connected to the higher being.
Definitely something about Black Star, about Songs of the End of the World. There's definitely a commonality there.
Yes.
Me. Lovely to hear it. Really nice.
Oh, what a way to go. And it was amazing because I did this interview with the drummer, Woody Woodmansey, and they were playing in New York, the night on Bowie's birthday, and they, phone him and say, hi, David, and there was a rumor that he was going to appear, obviously. They play this gig and they phone him and they wish him a happy birthday. And the next day he wakes and his phone's going mad and it's like hundreds of messages. And it's like, oh, Jesus, what's that? And it's like, David's died. It's like he said it was just such a, he couldn't comprehend it. It was such a weird timing. Just such a weird, and he was, yeah. And I don't know if you know that Elvis Presley song, Black Star, or...
Don't actually, no.
Oh, Jesus. I'll have to send you that link as well, won't I?
Okay.
It's basically, he writes a song called Or Flame Inside. It's like when you see your black star, you know your time is up. And he was born the same day as Elvis. He was, a big hero of Elvis. So it's kind of that little connection about when you see your black star, that's when it's up.
There you go.
It's we read into it, but at the same time it's just curious. But I will send you that interview with Radio 4 with Bowie, because you'll go, that's fascinating.
It will be. I don't doubt it.
Yeah. Yes. Well, look, I'm looking for, I've loved listening to, actually, because I was listening to your YouTube channel, and it sort of was playing all your material on it, and it was like, it was just going from your one Imagine Me Gone to all the others. It was fantastic. That's why I was curious where it was recorded. It was just stunning.
That's good.
Relief. I think that is, it's like, Christ, this is quite.
I have to say, this new record is the first time it's felt like a proper record rather than just demos. The previous records were I've honed my production skills. I'd still love a producer, really. That would be the thing that would make it, particularly for the recording voice. I remember Bob Dylan saying, you've got to work with the best. So when you've got a voice like mine, you need someone really good to record it. Yeah, Bob. Okay. But anyway, you do with you do what you can with what you've got, don't you?
And just move on. Yeah, well, look, so I'm looking forward to it next month. It's all here, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, but look, thank you ever so much for your time. And like I said,
Thanks, Dave.
it was nice seeing you in '89, Art Centre, Norwich. You were the headline.
Yeah, I'm amazed you can remember. I wish I could remember. I know we played it. That's as much as I can remember. I hope we were all right. There were times that people in our band weren't all right, but I hope it wasn't hostile.
It was a good time. I just remember people like Galaxy 500 and
Amazing.
all those bands were doing that moment, weren't they? And then seeing people like the Throwing Muses and the Pixies, and that was a double bill. And it was like, we were spoiled, really, but never mind. We just took it all like, what? That was nice. That was worth $250.
250 Galaxy 500. Can you imagine?
Yeah, you were probably £2.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay, look. Thanks.
Moment.
Yeah, look, thank you, Patrick. It's been amazing.
Thanks for taking the time. All right, nice to talk to you.
Yeah, have a lovely, good luck on everything. Take care, matey.
Thank you. Cheers now.
Bye.
Bye.
And that, dear listener, is the end of the interview. A massive thank you to Patrick for giving me the time for that. Fascinating insight into his life. There you go. And yes, his material is on Bandcamp and also on YouTube, so you'll be able to get that in the link below. This has been the C86 Show, David Eastaugh. If you want to contact me, you can on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, and all those other social media platform sites. Just do C86 Show and my name, it will come up. Yes, do sort of, yes, if it's positive and nice, otherwise don't bother. Also, I've done lots of interviews. You can find those on Spotify, iTunes, Podbean. That's true. Have a great week. Stay safe.